Michail is my name, and I've been working in games since 2010. Started off at Digital Chocolate, and after that have been working at both Rovio and Supercell, and moving to US this Sunday, so starting at a new place. But yeah, you've had some great lectures today, and not today, but I mean before, and I was looking at the list, and then basically I've been working with at least half of the people, and I know that they're really good. Like last time you had Aki here. They're talking about awesome stuff, and I'm gonna talk about product management. And I thought about like what's important about product management, and what do you think about product when somebody says he's a product manager, he does product management. And I think making money is the most important thing. Like if games wouldn't be making this much money as they are right now, I think 90% of you wouldn't be here. There wouldn't be even this kind of lecture right now, like there wasn't a couple of years ago. So I'm going to talk about product management. I'm going to talk about not exactly the money making, but how to run a successful business, how to run a successful product. Because if you're running a games company, if you're working in a games company, it's all about successful games. If you don't have any of those, if you don't have money coming in, that means you don't have money to develop games. And if you don't have money to develop games, you need to kick out the people out, and then it's not a fun place. I've been there, believe me. And I understand it works in a way that I talk, and then you interrupt, and we discuss stuff, and then I talk again, and then you interrupt. So let's do that kind of formula. It works better. So most important thing about my presentation and overall product management is that it's about freemium games. And freemium games is, I mean, there are 4 things that has to be there. First of all, they're naturally free. They're free to download. That means that there are more and more people who will download the app and start playing it. Second thing that is very important in freemium is that they have to be social. And I'll go through this subject later. Third thing, as well, very important, is that there is no ending in a freemium game. It's not like a normal game. It's not like you're playing and this is your ultimate goal. Once you reach it, the game ends. That's called a paid game. That's called a console game. In freemium games, there is no ending. It's a never-ending grind. And then finally, what is very important to remember, as I'll be talking about freemium games, is the sessions are short. So this is very important to remember, because we're talking about mobile games. We're talking about, well, browser games at a time. But mostly about mobile, because that's where the business is right now. And when you're talking about mobile, you're talking about short sessions. The kind of games you can play when you're in a bus, when you're getting a coffee, when you're in a toilet. I mean, we're not talking about hours and hours of gameplay. So let's start with the basic. How do you make business out of freemium games? There are 3 things that you have to remember. The first thing is conversion, which basically is how many of your players are converting into paid users. How many of them are spending money? Second thing is the daily active users, meaning how many of players you have. And I like to, and usually it's better to look at daily users, not monthly, because it's pretty easy to ramp up a large proportion of monthly users. Say like a Finnish company says that they have 200 million monthly users, but you can very easily bump that up by running a campaign, getting a lot of users who will just install and try the game once and never come back during that month, but you'll still see a huge amount of monthly users. What daily active users usually show is how many of them are active day after day after day. And then those kind of active users are those who will be making the business for you. And final metric in freemium business model is the average revenue per paying user, meaning what's the average price point a player spends. When you have these 3 big ones, you can start breaking it down into smaller ones. You have you can break down daily active users into returning users and new users, meaning how many players keep coming back and how many of them are new ones. In the conversion, you can do the same. You can look at the new buyers, you can look at the repeat buyers. In the average revenue per users, again, you can look at the volume of product that you're selling, or the revenue in a way, like how much revenue coming. And it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. What I'm trying to say is, in product management, it's about looking at the big picture and starting breaking it down into smaller pieces, with both analytics, with feedback the qualitative feedback, and instinct. Like, what do you think is a good game? What do you think is happening in a game? So breaking down bigger things into smaller goals, that's one of the most important things in product management now, and I'll go further into that. I've done some recruiting. I've hired young product managers, and one of my favorite questions usually is, how would you double a revenue of a title X? And usually the one who's been interviewed has been playing a game for a while, and this is the kind of question that is very important for me to really realize how the person understands games. Let's try it with you guys. Tell me a mobile game, kind of a big one. Just mention one.
Clash of Clans.
Okay, Clash of Clans. Who would like to tell me how they would double the revenue on Clash of Clans? Yeah, please.
You either have to double amount of players, double the conversion rate, or double the average purchase.
That's on the high level, and that's very bright thinking. But okay, that's how you start basically thinking it. So you look at the numbers and you start putting it down. But that's a vague answer. If I would ask you, so how would you double the amount of active users? Now that's the real. It's really important that you break it down, but then you have to start breaking down. Okay, daily active users. Then you again break it down to smaller ones. Okay, you start thinking about how many of the players are returning and how many new players that are coming in. And out of the returning users, how many of them are organic, how many of them are paid, and so forth and so forth. So it's breaking down bigger goals into smaller and smaller and starting optimizing these small pieces. Because if I would give somebody a goal like double the revenue of this game, it's a huge goal. If you're not able to break it down into very small battles, you will lose. You will lose the war. So you have to start thinking about the big picture and breaking it down, and using analytics, using different kind of tools to figure out what part of the game you could optimize, and using your understanding how to optimize it. And I'll go through later. So okay, let's take the first step. If you have more players, you have more revenue. That's pretty clear. And one of the best way to break it down, like on a very high level, is between returning players and new players. Those who have been playing the game and are coming back, compared to those who are just starting out. And here, how the product management works. We take the returning players. So let's say you have a game that you can see that not a lot of, like you can easily optimize compared to benchmark. You can optimize how many players are coming back, so you can increase that amount. One of the games that have been live for a while, I like this example a lot. So they come up with a feature. It's sort of like a farming game. So on each of the farms, they place this kind of sad little creature. Of course, the game is aimed more towards women players, and this creature was really sad because he didn't have his toy. And you tapped on it, and you're like, "Why are you so sad?" And he said, "Like, I need this toy." And in order to get that toy, you need to do this, and that. So basically, you need to collect different pieces of the toy. And to collect those different pieces, you had to play the game a lot. And you had to play the game a lot on consecutive days and on consecutive weeks. When you did that, the little creature got extremely happy. And at the same time, you got happy because the players kept on coming back and back and back. And that means you increased the amount of returning users. The same thing works with new players as well. You have your active players, like in Candy Crush. They ask you to log in through Facebook. I mean, you know how it works. It's one of the most easiest way. Log into Facebook, then you put in a friend wall where you can either pay or bring more users, and you get free organic users coming into your game. So more users, more money, and all the games use it. There's a lot of talk that the best way to create a good game or a good retention or whatnot is to create an excellent game. Of course, that you have to have the excellent product, but even the best of the products use a lot of marketing. So don't be fooled about that. It's between those two. Any counter arguments? Usually some people say that you don't need marketing. No? Okay. So the second thing is conversion. Getting more players in is not well, returning users is one of the main concerns in product management, because that's what you can directly affect in a game. You can come up with features, you can come up with designs, you can come up with different kind of social walls that will increase the amount of returning and new users. But mostly, once the game is at the stable course, once it's launched, it's mostly about marketing. What, as a product management, you can do, and mostly is your number one role, is to increase the amount of paying users. Because again, you're working on a game, on a team, you can have 20 people easily, that you need to create revenue to keep that team running and then keep that team alive. So how to increase the conversion? I'm going to talk through a process I like to use, which starts with getting the players to enjoy the game, learn how to play it, getting them to play with friends, either real friends or friends that they have acquired through the game, getting the players to collaborate together, and finally making them compete against each other. So, mechanics that monetize the game. With every game, you start off, of course, with the first session, and this is sometimes overlooked, but this is actually one of the most important parts of the game design. So the first session, meaning that when you download that free game, you have absolutely no need to keep playing it. If it's not fun, you haven't paid anything for it, you will quit instantly. The threshold to quit, of course, is higher if your friend came to you and said that this is an awesome game, you have to play it. But there's not a lot of that happening. Usually it's just you see an ad, it might be featured by Apple, it's an ad on Facebook or whatever, and it looks nice, it looks cool, you download it. The first thing that I personally like to emphasize is freshness. And by freshness, I mean, when you look back and when you think back about different kind of games you played, think back of how it made you feel. Like the coolest game, like the start of the game was awesome, and you got instantly hooked. That's the kind of start you need to go for. You need to go for extreme entertainment value. It should be like a movie trailer, like with absolutely awesome action. Second thing is about action. So action should be always there before teaching. And this is like in the typical game design where you have a paid game. If I pay $2, $3, $5 for a game, I'm more keen on keep on playing it when the game starts by teaching me a tutorial like, this is the button, you move left, right, left, etc. And this is how you attack, this is how you jump. In a freemium game, you don't do that because that's boring. People don't want to do that. I mean, you can do it in a fun way if you're able to. But it should be all about action. It should be all about engaging players and not teaching them how to play. And final thing that is important in the first time session is to end it in a cliffhanger moment, in the kind of a moment that you want to come back. Usually you can design the game economy, or usually you do it by design of the game economy that there's basically nothing left to do but to wait. That happens in those games, but it should be a very interesting moments. Like, for example, we did this one game a few years back, and we ended the first session with, it was an army game. So a player just got to a certain point, and he beat basically all the enemies, and the session ends where the enemy attacks him back, and he starts battling, and he runs out of resources, and there's a waiting time that he needs to come back and continue the battle. And players came back because, I mean, it was a very interesting moment. They were just fighting back for the territory that they freed. So that's the kind of approach you need to be thinking. Like, you need to make it a cliffhanger moment, like in the soap operas. So the first session, by Freshness, let's take Clash of Clans for example. When it came out, when you played it for the first time, it looked really nice. It was beautiful colors, and it looked different. You haven't played this kind of game before. Then after that, at least a couple of dozen games came with a similar kind of approach. And it doesn't mean that these games, like Samurai Sieges or Dragon Empires or whatnot, that they're worse. They might be even better. They might be a lot better. But because they're not fresh, because they feel like exactly the same kind of experience you already had, people don't play them. Like, there's no point starting the same thing. It's like watching a movie all over again, or a TV show all over again. So keeping it fresh, that's very important. Now, once you got the freshness there, once you have the sort of a beginning in the game that is very engaging, that is, yeah, sure.
I have a question about the previous slide. How do you feel about the Jewel, Blitz, and Candy Crush then? Would you say that Candy Crush kind of like looks pretty much the same, but it was more successful?
Yeah, that's in arcade games and in those kind of puzzle games. That's a really good question, actually. They are they're very similar in a way, but they change some crucial elements that it's different. Like in Bejeweled Blitz, you have the time element. In Candy Crush, you don't. The progression is totally different. It was a map-based progression. So in the end, the mechanic is the same because the mechanic worked, but the game is actually a lot different. And when you look at the other games from King, they're actually very similar, but quite different at the same time. So yeah. Personally, I think Bejeweled is very, very different because of the timed element, mostly. But yeah. So, okay, you got the first session is fresh, cool, players love it. You're moving forward. Like, you were able to come up as a product manager with extreme proposition of future fun in the game. Now it's time to teach players and to make them want to progress. And this is the thing that people usually put right into the beginning of the game. When you start a game, there's a lot of characters talking to you, or a lot of bubbles, and you just tap, 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 tap. Like, I want to play this game, I don't want to read. That's what usually happens. That means it's wrong kind of flow. This is what follows. Like, you already know that you like the game and you want to continue. And here you start putting on a visual progression. These are just some mock-ups of a game concept we're making. So again, visual progress. You start off very small. Like in a lot of simulation games, you start off basically where you don't have anything. Like here, the story behind this image was that you kind of, we had a lot of cooler images as well of the story image, but basically your home castle was burned, and you barely escaped. Your father kind of died in the fire, and you have just a small army with you, and it should be in a safe haven place where you have mountains, forest, and like, this is a safe place to start. You have basically nothing. And then you start progressing, you start taking out the different kind of elements, you start building walls, and what's most important is the visual progression. Things start changing. And when they change, it goes from this safe haven with a couple of units to some kind of crazy city with catapults and huge armies, dragons, castles. Visual progression is very important because it's the most important way for players to show that they've been playing and they have been achieving. So when you have the visual progression, what you do as a product manager is that of course visual progression makes players want to progress. When you play in a certain game, you want to have that dragon, you want to have that unit, this unit, that building, or whatever. As a product manager, when you create that demand, the second step is that you usually start building an economy around that demand. Again, Clash as an example, I know that game pretty well, so that's why I use it a lot. You start off, like, players really want dragons. They want dragons bad. So it takes 30 minutes to train a dragon, which is not, I mean, pretty easy, right? And they don't even cost that much. But before you can actually train dragons, you need to upgrade your barracks to a higher level, and that takes 4 days to upgrade them. And an additional 5 days, which is not written anywhere, it will take to actually collect all the needed gold if you play actively. Then again, before you can do the barracks, you need to upgrade the town hall, which takes 6 days of construction alone. Plus, if you play daily for like 10 times a day, it will take you only 4 days to collect all the gold. And yeah, to have a place for all that gold that needs to be spent on the town hall, you will have to play for at least 24 hours and also wait for 24 hours till the construction of gold storage increases. And during that time, if you fail to play as often as possible, you will be most likely looted, and that would hinder your progression a lot by several days or months. And you will have to spend more time and more currency on different kind of defenses and troops. So basically, you're left alone with what, 21 days to get the dragon, in a very optimal situation where you play daily all the time. This is called an interdependent economy. We put in a goal the player wants, and then we start breaking it down into smaller sub-goals. And then, because each sub-goal is in a way a point where players can either play or pay. You'll get these slides later. I'll put it on Dropbox link, so you don't need to. Or you can play the game, and you'll find out how easy it is to get a dragon. So three key things about getting players want to progress is visual progression, tweaking the game economy, building the interdependent game economy, where instead of giving players, like, you wait 21 days to get the dragon, you break it down to smaller goals. That way players will continue playing through it. And third thing is you need to have the balanced sessions that keep on player coming in. So visual progression is important. I mean, if you play a game, you really want a dragon or whatever, it drives you forward, but in a way, that gives you a goal towards you're working to. But we can't really, like, if you're playing a game alone, you don't really measure your progression. If you play a Call of Duty or whatever console game at home, you think you're playing it pretty well, you keep on playing it every day, nothing happens basically. But if you want to measure your progression, you need to compare it to somebody else. And here's where the social elements come in. So there are two very important parts in social elements. First thing is that they have to make it easy for a player to show off how well you're progressing. And secondly, they have to be mutually beneficial. So again, a feature that completes both of these things. It's the troop donation in Clash of Clans. So how it works is, I mean, I'm sure everybody of you knows, you donate troops to your other clan members who you're playing with. But there's also a ego boost in a way. So when players are donating together troops, like I'm giving you troops, you're giving me back, we're both kind of getting benefit of that, because the more you donate, the higher place you will have in your clan, and then the more socially esteemed you have. And at the same time, it's a show-off. If you're able to donate the best kind of troops in your clan, you're getting a lot of social respect inside of the clan. In order to be able to donate the best kind of troops in the clan, you have to play more and more and more, and every time there's an update that adds new units, you most likely will pay, because you don't want to wait 21 days till you get to the point where you can give these unique units to players. So social mechanics are there mostly to, from product management point of view, they're there to measure progress, to measure your progress, to make you compare your own progress to other players' progress. Because when you do that, you become competitive usually. So in a way, this is how monetization works. This is the secret graph. The prime to spend moment comes when you slow down the rate of progression and then create for a reason for players to pay. And players are primed to spend when they compare their own progress to the progress of other players. So as you experience in most of the games, the beginning is extremely fast, and then the progression is very slow. It starts slowing down until at the point it seems like you're trailing in one spot. You're not really moving forward. You kind of are, but not really. That's where the prime to spend moments come.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Where would you put the prime to spend? How many sessions or days would you wait until that moment?
Yeah, I wouldn't put it in a days or sessions. I mean, in some it works. Sometimes you can put it into the first session if you create a really good cliffhanger moment player will want to continue. Usually the best ways to put the prime to spend moment is based on the game itself. Like if we take Clash of Clans as an example, it's a good example because probably everybody here has played it. The prime to spend moments are usually happening with upgrade of the town castle, because at some point players just feel that it's almost there but not quite, and then they end up spending to get to that next level. And that's the kind of important. And it's also it usually happens after several days of gameplay, and then continues happening when players really understand how much time they would need to spend, and then they put in the value for the time, and they can see like, okay, it's either $10 or 3 days of my time playing this game. You're probably gonna pay it. Others? Yeah.
Could there be some point maybe tied to how free-to-play games built into your routine? For example, playing Clash of Clans once a day, and then at some point upgrades may take more than 1 day, and you want to keep playing every day and not leave the game. So
yeah.
Drive monetization.
Yeah, monetization in terms, that's how it happens in all the games basically. So in good design game economy, what happens is you have to invest more and more time to progress as more and more as you play longer. So in order for me to progress in, say, Clash of Clans again, I need to play 20 sessions a day. Like I could have started with 1 or 2 sessions, but now it's at least 20, 25 sessions a day. And at every time I progress, I need to play more and more and more to stay competitive, or pay. So basically, that's how it works. Yeah.
What do you think the longest time a player should wait for, like the next upgrade?
There is no, like there are no magical numbers. Like what is the highest price point for something, or the lowest?
Waiting a month for to train a dragon, is it like too long?
Yeah, if you would put it that way. But when you break down the month into several goals, it doesn't feel that long.
No, I mean for like a certain item,
yeah.
Like one upgrade, like not like going into.
Oh, I got it. So yeah, there's a very easy answer for that, and that's product management. And in product management, what you do is everything is measurable, and you get data from everything. Analytics are coming in all the time. And what happens in all of these games, that the numbers behind them get tweaked weekly, if not daily. So if it feels that something is like this training time is going too far, you can drop it down and see how it affects. When you have millions and millions of users, you get the data quickly. And also you can do A/B tests where some of the group will get 5% of the users will get this and that value. And it's all about tweaking. It's all about tweaking. Yeah.
You have the earliest point there, but probably when it's the many games. Like, okay, like first there's just some sort of slump, and then maybe even a bigger one or a smaller one.
So you're talking about like several time to spend moments, or?
I mean, like it's probably not like smooth as you have it there. When like probably you pinpoint it more accurately, like the time that I've been out here. Some players might be.
I got it. So basically how it works is if this would be a real data, it usually goes with like there's a small starting bump in the beginning when some players start the game, they're like, oh my god, this is awesome, I'm gonna buy the whatever beginners pack, whatnot, and then it goes down when the players, some of them quit and nothing happens, or they have enough resources for the beginning. And then there's usually another big bump that comes in terms of some kind of very big upgrade. And usually during those kind of big upgrades or the points where players have to play a lot in order to progress, you can see a lot of players also dropping it off. And then when you're talking about monetization, it's a lot about creating that balance between making money and keeping players. Like it's a very fragile balance. So you have to be pretty harsh sometimes, put in like crazy numbers, but at the same time keeping the game fun and trying to optimize so that the players won't leave. Like they would feel like, okay, doesn't matter, I'm just gonna go grind it through. Was that an answer to your question? Kinda?
Yeah, kinda.
Just shoot away another one, so.
Yeah, I think like as an example, I'm playing 12 times every now and then.
Oh, what?
12 times.
Yeah.
And I know that quite many people want to get the tier 8 tank PSV, and just before that you need to grind like exceptionally much. Like there's like, it's just like more than double that you need to put it than it was before to get that kind of tank. So I think that's sort of design that maybe here is the best way to sort of do that.
Yeah, most likely.
Yeah, but maybe, I'm not sure, but it might be that they've sort of done that even before, like in tier 6 or 7, trying to sort of make me more likely to do that. But I was just asking on the mechanics if it's probably it's not that scientific, probably it's just by measuring, like having measures and then getting data.
Yeah, you would be surprised how not scientific game design is. Like people who analyze different kind of games, and you can read those a lot, they think that it's like super scientific and all the pros and cons are taken into account and whatnot. But it's usually about trial and error. That's how it is, because you can get the data so quickly. You know if you're doing the right or wrong thing, and it's so easy to change whatever you're doing, because everything is digital, everything is server based. So it's trial and error, and that probably works with World of Tanks, like that kind of gap, and they're just monetizing that.
Yes, so how big of an impact can you have by optimizing the game? I mean, if you think about like, you launch the game with the secondary retention 20%, and you optimize it to become 60, or will it end up being 22 or 25 and you have to throw it away?
That's again one of the things, like, it depends so much. Whenever people are telling you their numbers on retention and whatnot, like you can, like, oh, we launched in Canada or somewhere and like we're seeing a really good retention of 50% or whatnot. Most important thing is, how does it scale? So we're talking about the quality of users at the same time. Now you're talking about like 20% retention from the get-go, that game is dead. Like, or there's some major flaws. Usually the retention is pretty good in the beginning when you launch. If you know what you're doing, you launch a game, it has a pretty good retention, you can have significant impact. We're talking about 10, 15% of day one retention in the beginning. Then comes the problem of you scaling the game. Now it might work in Canada on 1,000 users who kind of know each other from somewhere, who are interested in just this kind of game, who are just like typing in Apple Store, if it's tank, they were typing tank, and it's a tank game. They probably like it. Now, when you start really scaling that game, trying to get everybody to download it and start playing it, even though they wouldn't be like really interested in it, that's when you see what's the true retention that game is. And when you move out from Canada to other countries, or from Australia to other countries, like how will the Turkish players play it? How will the Germans play it? How will the Kazakhstanian players play it? that's real retention numbers.
What about, for example, ARPU?
Average revenue.
So we are not talking about new users necessarily as much anymore. We're talking about the existing users.
Yeah, I'm talking about running the business. So that's you optimize the retention, and after that, I'll touch the average revenue per paying user. That's the last thing, and it's one of the smallest thing. But most importantly, it's about retention and conversion. Those are the very important things. And but to answer to your question, you can have very big change influence on the type of change, on the type of product management you do for a game, especially in the soft launch phase. Because if we're talking about a game that is very social, you can't do a lot of tweaking there. Like, you can't change certain values for some players and keep them different to others, because it's a social game, it's a competitive game, people keep on talking about it. It's not fair that if I'm playing World of Tanks, you have to grind for 6 weeks and I can grind only for 3 weeks to get exactly the same tank. Like, that wouldn't work. People would go crazy. So when it's live, there's very limited amount of, not limited, but significantly limited amount of things you can try out compared to the soft launch. Yeah. But yeah, it's all about, like, what I'm trying to basically say about product management. It's about breaking down to smaller and smaller goals. Like, if you have a retention problem, let's start breaking it down. Who's retaining bad? Is it the new users? Is it the old users? At what point are the old users dropping down? What level? What are they doing at that point? If it's new users, where are the users coming from? What's the source? Is it some bad source? We're getting bad users from Malaysia who don't really understand the game, or haven't we localized for that language? Like, it's about asking the right questions. It's about digging deep, and figuring out those small issues that you start improving on. So that's basically product management in a nutshell. So overall, like, the mechanics that monetize the game, like, one of the things, like, I want you to remember two things, and this is one of the things. It's very easy. You start off with the first session, make it fresh, make it really good. Don't think about it as a Call of Duty or Uncharted or whatever paid game, but think it as a movie trailer or TV show trailer. Make players really want to see it through, to come back. The second thing is start teaching the players gradually, opening up new things in the game, and make them want to progress through definitely some visual progression tools, and employ good interdependent economy. Finally, when players are really wanting to progress, when they're moving forward, when they want that new stuff that is in the game, you add social mechanics so that they can compare their own progress to the progress of other players, and through that want to progress faster, want to be better. And finally, you make it possible for them to spend to save time. That's the best way to monetize. Final thing, we talked about average revenue per paying users. Basically, two things. First one is the price elasticity. Again, you can test it out in soft launch phase, basically put in different prices and see how it works. But usually like in every business, price of something is right when based on the demand of it. Like, how much is a Coke bottle? It might, like, if it's a €1 somewhere, it might feel cheap, or you might get it, but you're in an airport, you don't really want a Coke bottle, it costs €5, you're not going to get it, or whatever. So basically, you create the demand, you create the need to buy that item, and then that affects the price elasticity. And then second thing is different kind of sales. Personally, I'm not a big fan of sales. I've done a lot of different kind of sales in games, and what I see in the end is that they're an excellent tool for converting player for the first time and getting them into that spending mode. But later on, if you keep on running sales, if you only do sales, then your revenue chart will look like this, like wave sort. So players will just wait till you have a sale, pack on different kind of stuff, and not spend for a while, and then again spend during the sale. So you'll be selling your stuff at a discount, and at the same time, when you're selling stuff at a discount, that means you have to create more stuff because players are progressing faster because they got more resources, because they buy them more cheaper, and that creates just more problems instead of revenue. Next thing I'm going to talk about what makes a good product manager. Do you guys have any questions about the whole freemium business? Okay, we'll come to it later. So, a product manager. Basically, there are three things that I think are really important in product management, and three very important roles. The first one is being a good game manager. So game manager meaning you're managing a successful product. The second thing is being a good project manager. You have a lot of talented and very different kind of people working on a team. You have artists, you have engineers, you have coders, you have analytic people. Like it's a team of very diverse people, and in order to keep them going to the right direction, and I mean, project management is one of the things. I'll go through each of the steps later. And finally, design. Of course, you have to love games. So when we're talking about game management, it's basically making sure that you're running a successful product. One of the most important things, like there are a few important things in being a game manager. One is naturally understanding the market. You really need to understand like what is a good retention rate, what are the benchmarks, what themes are now there, what are coming up, like does it make any sense to do a pirate game right now? Does it make any sense to do a army themed game? So you need to understand the themes. You need to understand the growth of the market and the potential for different kind of games. Second important thing is understanding the technologies and platforms. Does it make sense to do a game for a Kindle? Do you launch on Android and iOS at the same time? What are your potentials, etc.? You have to understand the platforms and the technology, what is possible and what makes sense. Third thing is usability. That's extremely important. As a product manager, you'll end up doing a lot of stuff regarding user testing, regarding different kind of focus group testing, just understanding how players understand your game, and then making sure that they are able to play, that it's not too hard, and even the dumbest person understands it. And finally, you need to understand how to leverage numbers. Leveraging numbers is basically what I was talking last 45 minutes. So breaking down into smaller goals, looking at the issues, breaking it down into smaller goals, and starting to optimize these small steps week after week after week, sprint at a time. And again, measuring what you're doing and reporting on that. Not exactly like proper reports, but telling others and moving forward, basically. Second thing is project management. And personally, for me, this is the toughest one. So if you don't have a producer in a team, and then you're acting more of a producer, this is about keeping everybody going towards the same goal. So as I said, there are very different people in the team, and you have to make sure that everybody understands what is the goal of this sprint, this 2-week, 3-week sprint. What are we doing right now, and why are we doing it, and how are we doing it? When you're in a live mode, when you go in from one build to another, it's not that hard. You basically know what you're doing because you're getting different kind of analytics in. You're getting feedback from players. You're playing the game yourself, and like everybody in the team really understands what you're doing. This is extremely hard being a project manager on a game that is still in concepting phase, in alpha phase, and in very early beginnings, because everything changes. The theme changes, the loop changes, even the game time. The game itself might be totally different than you thought that you were doing. And managing the team throughout the craziest changes ever is one of the hardest thing you can do. And yeah, it's about making the team work well together, and making sure that you're going to the right direction, even though you don't know what the direction should be. And finally, game design, being a game designer is also a part of product management role, and this is basically an ability to create great games. It's about understanding that making a good game is not it's not a process. It's not a it's not a process. It's in a way it's a bit magical experience. It's some things just click together and some things start working, and you find that perfect little thing together, and then you move forward. It's about creating fun, and there's no formula how to create fun. It's a lot about understanding mechanics, and most importantly, product managers have to be able to communicate well. And by communicate, I don't mean like they have to know how to present or talk well or being slick or whatnot. They have to communicate their designs, their ideas in a way that they are actionable, that other team members, engineers, and an artist can understand what you're going after and create that thing. So whenever interviewing a product manager, I'm looking for a few things. First one is, of course, passion for making great games, and this is something like I'm sure a lot of here have is that they've been playing games for so long and they can reminisce those cool games that they played as a kid, and then they really want to create that fun, awesome experience. Second thing is, as I talked before, making game is not a process. It's that magical combination of good mechanics, of fun, and intuition, and small things that will make it unique and awesome. Being a product manager is also about being interested in all roles that happen in game development, and this can be very tough. It depends, of course, on what is your background. If your background is engineering part comes to you easily, but then you have to understand the art side of it. You have to understand the business side. Again, if you're from business side, then there's the art and the engineering, the technology side. So being able to understand and being able to really be interested in all the aspects of game development is an important part of product management. And of course, you don't have to be an expert in everything, but you need to understand what's happening. Another thing is that you have to think from players' point of view. You have to play your game over and over again and then really experience how the players will see it. Like, how does it feel to play at a certain level for weeks and weeks? Is it cruciating, or is it maybe fun? Is it a goal that you can go after? Or is it just impossible? Details is again, you keep on playing your game over and over again, and you have to see if everything is perfect. If those small things are good, and it's like reading your own text over and over again. You get blind to the details, but they're very important. And then logical capabilities and creative mindset. This is again what we talked about before. It's about looking at the big picture, breaking it down into smaller pieces, and being creative whenever improving those small pieces. And communication skills, basically, that's again, when you're designing stuff, when you're designing features, you need to be very clear on what you want to do. Like that's your role as a product manager. You need to be extremely clear. You need to walk through all the game designs and understand, like, this is why we're doing it, and this is how the players have to feel when they encounter this feature. And consideration for people. By consideration of people, I mean, again, you have very different kind of people working with you. You're working with them, and it's very important to make the team work well. It's very important as a human role to sort of a human resource management role. And finally, hands-on work style. When you're working as a product manager in the games industry, you're not really, like, it's not this sort of a role where you have your own office and everybody works according to your plans. It's a very hands-on work. You have to work on every number and do the smallest details inside of the team. So very hands-on role. So basically a couple of things. that I want you to remember. The first one, as I talked before, is how to convert people, how to convert players, starting from the first session, making them want to progress, and make them compare their progress to the progress of other players, and providing them ability to spend in order to save some time. And the second thing is breaking things down, like breaking big pictures like revenue down into daily active users times conversion times average revenue per paying users, and breaking each of the element to smaller and smaller pieces and starting to optimize those pieces in a way that is both fun, that is totally doable, and that improves both the game and of course the financial performance of the title. So yeah, that was it. Thanks, guys. Yeah. Go ahead.
I have a question. What's your opinion? Is there any reward in taking risks and being crazy in this scene? Because it seems like it's so calculated and.
Is there reward in taking a risk? Depends on the risk, actually. That's true. A lot of, like, if you're in a bigger company, in a more stable company, and that means you have a lot of people working for you, then the ability to take risk is much more smaller, because then you kind of know what you're doing, and you go in for the big targets. You go in for the proved themes and proved concepts that actually work. If you're working in a very small indie company, you can start taking risk. You can start seeing what will happen. But at the same time, if you look at the top 10 grossing apps, for example, there's nothing new in those. Absolutely nothing. There are games that have been done for years and years before, and just on different platforms. So is there a risk? So reward and risk? Yes, no. I believe that like personally, how I like to start in game development is, if we start from zero, from nothing, I'd go by following a certain game. Like I know, like everybody in that team who are sitting there with me, everybody loves this game or that game or this type of game, and we all play it, and we start building exactly similar kind of game, like a copy almost. And after weeks and weeks, but with a different team, and after some time, we realize that there's some things that could be done better, because we know this genre. We've done the same thing now. We played a lot. Like, let's start improving on the things that these guys before us built, and then we go like exactly the same direction, and then start moving somewhere else. Now you're talking about taking crazy risk from the beginning, like screw everything that has been done ever. We're gonna make the best game ever that nobody has ever made. I've heard some Finnish companies doing that. What happens is that you're not copying anything, so you kind of go in here, like on the bottom, instead of going up towards one direction and kind of going to another. So it's huge risk, and very rarely you've seen those work. Nothing comes to my mind. Was that a good answer?
Yes. I'm not saying that with any kind of judgment already.
Yeah, and then there isn't. Like I said, it's a perfect thing if you're a very small indie developer. That's what you need to do. You need to raise eyeballs and kind of go for something unique, try it out, because that's how they usually start. Like, you have your own idea, but most likely it won't be a big commercial hit. You'll win indie rewards.
Do game companies have like a fringe division where they do crazy things?
Only the worst ones. So think about how it works. Like, if you have a division or a team that prototypes stuff, and they do something, and then they come to other players like, okay guys, we prototyped, had a lot of fun doing this stuff. Now you can make a game out of it. Do you want to work in a factory? Because that's a factory. When we're talking about game development, you want to there to be people who love games. Like everybody who loves in game development have been playing at least 20 years. They know how to make good game, and they don't want to work in a factory. They want to make their own kind of game. So those kind of things don't work. When somebody else comes with an idea of a prototype or something and throws it forward for somebody to develop into a good game, never going to happen.
Talking about crazy ideas, you mentioned them. What's your take on the user involvement when it comes to early phase concept development and game development? Like, at what phase would you go out of the building, so to say, and test whether your idea and concept really, what kind of response the real players?
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. What? Yeah. Okay. So the question was, at what point do you go out of the game development and start showing what you've done to real players? That's a good question. Like, short answer is, I'd go before soft launch, in the beta, before soft launch. That's when the long answer is, when you're working on a game development studio, you have tens of extremely smart people passionate about games who have been playing for tens of years. So you have a pretty good focus group around you all the time. Same thing is, like, how do I like to do game development is I like to develop the small part of it. Like, okay, when you're moving towards that direction, you kind of know what you're doing. But there has to be an element that is fun and repeatable all the time, like be it a battle mechanic or collecting mechanic or something that you could do over and over again. So you do a prototype out of that and test it out internally. Like, is it fun? Like, is this battle sequence fun? And people in your studio will test it out and like, okay, I've been doing this 10 times, 15 times. I think it's fun. I could do it one more time. That's how you know that you got something. And you test the games out before soft launch. But the problem with testing with people is that they don't get it. Like, if you have a small portion of your game and you bring them and show them something and make them do something, they don't get the big picture. And it's really hard for them to kind of test small portions of the game with real players. At the same time, it's like, how do you want to show, like, who are you testing with? In a way that if they come to your office, then they know, oh, this is this company. Oh, this is so nice. You have so nice office. And they're looking at the walls and they're giving you good reviews and whatnot. So it's tough. But my answer is before soft launch.
How do you see the role of publishers, and what are your recommendations for developers working with them?
That's a very interesting thing.
So you have to repeat the question.
I will repeat the question. The question was, how do I see the role of the publisher, and does it make sense for developers to work with a publisher? It's a very, very tough thing. See, the reason why you would work with a publisher is that you don't have the necessary resources you need to develop the game. Maybe you don't have enough money to do it. You don't have the marketing power. You don't have the analytics. You don't have all the tools you need to really create that game into a bigger picture. So of course, it would be that simple that, yeah, you work with a publisher, they take part of your revenue, and that's it. The problem is that the publisher at the same time wants to work only with developers that are almost sure hits. That means they don't want developers that are doing the risky stuff. At the same time, when they're not looking for developers who are doing the risky stuff, they're working with developers who have previous experience. So if you're working again with the developers who have previous experience, that means that they most likely are interesting to working with a publisher only if they get enough money so that they can do their own thing on the side and kind of half-ass the thing that they're doing with a publisher. In case that game that has been half-assed and pushed by a publisher live works and it becomes a major hit, it creates more problems. See, now if I'm a publisher and you're an indie game developer and we made a hit, now we start fighting who owns the players. Do you own the players? If you don't own the players, you don't own anything. Like, you have the technology, we'll try doing the same game again by your own. You won't get the players. And again, so you want the players, and I have the players, or who has the players, because I need to cross-promote them to other titles. So it's a mess. I would rather get an investor and launch a small game. Yeah, because otherwise you'll just get enough money to launch a game. It might work. It worked with Rovio. It worked with Cut the Rope, their first games. So, but you'll end up.
How's Scopely going to do it in a different way?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because they want to publish games from others.
Yeah,
right?
I know. I told you how it works. It's a conflict of interest. It is. It creates a lot of battles when both kind of want to get it to succeed, but at the same time, both are afraid to overinvest into it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I
Sure.
kind of want to go back to taking big risks a little bit. I think that in big companies, take Supercell for example, you could also take big risks because if you fail, it's not a bad thing because it doesn't matter if you lose like 500,000 or so. And if the leadership is in correct shape and you allow losing and failing, I think it's okay to take big risks. And you kind of have the financial ability to take risks better than in indie companies, for example. When you waste a year without any income and then you fail. So.
On a paper, yes. On a paper, what you said, it makes all the sense. In real life, that things don't work that way. The thing is that game industry is extremely fast. Like if you even think about Apple and the App Store, it's only a few years old. Back in 2000, I think 13 paid games were the ones that were making money. Rovio's Angry Birds Space were, I think, one of the highest grossing games ever. Move 1 year forward, they don't even hit top 10. So things change very fast. And by this, what I'm saying is that if you're not in the winning team, if you're not winning, if you're not producing solid hits, it's really hard to recruit good people. And good people tend to leave if they're not able to launch games, good games, and then work with the best players. So it creates a problem. And at the same time, there's a lot of, if you're in a big company, if you're not even a stock listed, if you haven't IPO'd, there's a lot of press that would follow if you don't launch that good of a game. If you're not in the stock market, that means you're trying to sell your company. If you're trying to sell your company or get new investors, you don't want to be there like, oh yeah, we launched 2 good games, then we came up with 5 bad ones. I'm sure we're going to do a 6th one is going to be pretty good. It doesn't work like that. Your value drops significantly if you launch something out of top 10. And if you launch something like, so it's...
Yeah, but I meant more like when you're like developing the games, you can take risks, but not like publish 2 risky games, obviously because it takes down your image. But yeah, when you're like, get a crazy idea to make a crazy fun game that's never been tried before, I think it's worth a shot to develop it for like half a year, see how it goes, but not maybe publish it. Doesn't work out.
Yeah. Okay. I haven't seen that work. I mean, I know what you're getting for, and you have a perfect logical explanation why should companies that have the revenue, have the financial resources, and could do a lot of crazy stuff, and it wouldn't mean anything to their bottom line. But all the companies work in a larger spectrum, again, and even trying out different stuff. Sure, of course it makes sense, and everybody is trying different stuff. But at the same time, you have to also remember that people who work in games industry, they usually played the same games for 20 years. Like I have played the same games that probably that Tonali has played, like here. So we've played all the same games, and if he comes with an idea, I'm sure I'm having pretty much similar kind of idea. So you'd be surprised how similarly thinking people there are in a game studio.
But if you compare this to like whatever, like cell phones, if Nokia developed like really simple cell phones for 10, 15 years, and then nobody had made a touchscreen phone before, and then Apple came out and made a huge success. So
yeah, but Nokia made the other crazy touch phones way before that.
Published them, and they should have.
Yeah, but you were talking just about things that you should make them but never publish them.
No, I didn't say never published.
But yeah, it's an endless discussion, and the thing is, it's about bigger picture. It's about companies. Now it's a much more higher level. It's not a product management thing. It's about investors and then the companies and whatnot. So if you want to sell your company, if you want to make big money, you don't launch shitty games. No matter, like, you better not launch anything, but you're just waiting for that good one and sell it when you have it out. And if you're publicly listed, again, you don't launch bad games because your stock options will just drop. So you
risky doesn't necessarily mean that.
most usually it does. That's the thing. Like, sometimes it will be so good that it will blow you off the water, but you can't take those risks. Unless you're an indie developer, then you should take those risks. That's my opinion. Again, only my opinion. Yeah.
I'm more familiar with television and films, for example, but I'm just thinking, like, Seinfeld. It was on, I think, for 4 seasons before it really became a hit. So in those 4 years, people didn't really got it, and then it became the biggest show of all time. So I have this kind of thinking, and I'm trying to apply it to games, but I'm not sure, maybe it doesn't translate.
Yeah, it does translate. You just increase that speed by 100 times. So if it doesn't make, like, games when they launch, they're not making big waves in the beginning because they haven't been promoted. So, and there are many reasons. So you think that about, like, a soft launch phase, when you tweak it out, you tweak the characters, you tweak the storyline, and at some point it starts clicking, and then when it goes to superstardom. And that's the soft launch phase. That's the initial growth phase. Only few games go to the direct top, and those are the ones published by the biggest players because they have so many users. Again, the thing about publishers and developers. So when the publisher has so many users, they can push it to all the audience. So, but normally that's how it grows. It's kind of silent for a few weeks, for a few months, and then it goes to its death or to superstardom. Just a lot faster, not 4 years. Okay? Yeah.
You said that the product manager should be able to understand the themes and what kind of themes work today or what kind of themes might work in the future. So how would you forecast that?
So forecasting themes and what works.
Forecasting, because let's say there's a startup that needs to forecast everything else is just a theme, but you need to know where the puck is going to be. So
exactly.
How would you go about? What would be your advice for the startup?
Okay, my advice on themes is pretty simple. You start off by looking at what's now on the top. So most likely, if you come up with something similar, like if there's zombie games on top, 1 or 2, it might not be the best thing if you develop a zombie game. Then you start looking at the bigger concept. Like, you really want to do sci-fi. You're a crazy StarCraft player. Okay, take a look at the App Store list again. See how many sci-fi games there ever been on top. None, because nobody gets sci-fi unless you're a nerd, or it's a Star Wars. That's the 2 things. So again, you start looking at this general public, like all the TV shows, all the movies, what's coming out, what's hot, what's not, like what is there, what hasn't been filled, what historically has worked and hasn't worked, and what's coming out. Like, you can pretty quickly see what kind of movies are coming out, and then they get published a lot earlier, like year and a half before a movie comes out. Like 300 is coming out or whatnot, those kind of films. And if you hit your game with a similar kind of theme during that time, and most likely there's a big boom going on in Hollywood, and you can push it through. So that would be my approach. Like, in all of my interviews, I usually have questions regarding popular culture and how guys and girls really get the how much movies they watch, how TV shows, and see how they figure out different kind of themes. That's how it goes. It's pretty simple in a way, and it's, again, nobody knows what's going to happen, but you kind of get the understanding. So that would be my. There's no tools to kind of do that. Yeah.
What about the platforms? Like iPad hasn't been there for so long, but you have like really successful page on that. What's the next iPad? Is it like Google Glasses or some other augmented reality? Do you have any forecast?
No, I don't, and I seriously don't know. I remember when iPad came, and I wasn't blown away because, and it wasn't really good platform for playing. I mean, it was kind of big in the beginning, the first iPad. But then with iPad Mini, that was the last thing that changed kind of everything. So it's you can't always forecast, but most importantly, you have to understand when those changes are coming, and then how they affect. Like the same thing happened with Nuke from Noble and Kindle and Noble. No, the Nuke was by, I don't remember who did it. That was one of those, and then the Kindle Fire. So those kind of things, and if you're the first mover, it might be a good thing, but then you need to understand how much over invested you'll be. Like I'll just give an example. I used to do Facebook games when Facebook games were kind of big, and we were often talking with Facebook about different kind of features that they were bringing in. Like, okay, we're having this feature when you can play your game when it's on your wall, so you don't have to go to Apple, like small things. And then they ask you to invest to that feature and start developing, change your roadmaps. And then you have to figure out, like, how does this change will affect, like how big of a change will be? Does it make sense for us to be the #1 here, or could we just follow and see what everybody else is doing? So it's about taking calculated risks in a way, and then changing your roadmap according to that. Just being generally interested in technology, like being a geek, is very important in product management. Also, one of the things that I'm looking in an interview, if a person is a geek, that's a really good thing. Yeah.
So if you have a small gaming company and you're soft launching your product, nowadays I guess the user acquisition costs are relatively high.
Yeah.
What kind of things do you have to see before you can commit, for example, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars into going live and having a marketing campaign, or how do you approach that?
Lifetime value. That's the only thing you need. You need to be able to properly calculate the lifetime value of different players. You also need to have the proper analytical tools. When you're getting new users in, you have to optimize the sources where they're coming in, so that you don't overspend and you get enough of kind of good quality users and stop that source before it start pushing you the wrong kind of bad users.
And after that, do you try to do ROI positive marketing? And
yeah, that's the whole idea, to do only ROI positive, meaning that the lifetime value has to be higher than the price paid for that. And you prove from product management side, like, that's not my problem, to be honest. Like, as a product manager, I don't care. I do care, I mean, a bit, but how I help is basically improving the K factor. That usually helps, but it's not the K factor, meaning that the players bring on their friends with them. You can do that, but most importantly, you can increase the revenue coming from those players. So when your players monetize better, that means your lifetime value is higher. That means you can spend more money on marketing. That means you get more players in who will spend more money, and your game will go further. That's how all the biggest games work. And that's why making money is very important. It's also with the user acquisition as well. But yeah, good analytics, that would be one of the things for a small company.
One more.
Yeah.
Would you advise for startups to build their own analytics and
No.
infrastructure?
No. For a startup, no. There's so many options that are free where you could start off. So it doesn't make sense. But as soon as possible, meaning as soon as you have successful products, it makes sense to to do a lot of your own analytics, and even the most simplest analytics, you only need good math PhD person who can help out with one game. But after that, it has to be so tied to user acquisition that the analytics has to, yeah, it's tough. Like, again, not my forte. I know on a very high level how it works, but haven't done user acquisition personally. Okay.
One quick question.
Yeah, sure.
There's a game on the App Store which is called XCOM something, and it's selling for 18 euros. So
18?
Yeah, so they're going the way completely different way. Do you know if they have sold any, or how is it going? Or is it desperate and just...
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Yeah,
no. You can go to App Annie and check it out. It doesn't work. No, like, no. With a paid game, the tops which you can do is if you have really small development team, like a couple of person, you can get your money back. You can also develop very different kind of games if that's your thing, like a game with an ending. But overall, with a paid game, the thing is, it's not the same. You don't need product manager. You don't need anything like that with paid games. So, paid game is a product. Freemium game is a service. Now, if you have a product, you launch the product, it goes live, you forget about it. You don't need to do updates to it, because it doesn't matter. Like, you do an update, the players have already paid for that game. So you're keeping a live team on a product that doesn't really generate that much money because it has been already bought. There's no additional revenue coming in. It's not a winning formula. The best thing is just to develop a good paid game, secure featuring from Apple if you're any kind of possible. Apple features for 1 week, you get several $1 million, and that's it. Then you pull the plug and start developing a new game. That's how it works. If you keep on developing that game, adding new features and stuff like that, you'll end up losing money. It depends on what you want to do.
What kind of figures are we talking? If we are in the US top grossing, top 20, let's say we are somewhere between 10 and 20, what kind of figures, revenues per day?
Grossing. The revenue is very skewed. The number one, number two are getting crazy money compared to 10. So 10 might be making 1/10 of what number one is making. If you're hitting top 10, haven't seen top 10 for a while, I would say. Personally, I haven't seen a top 10 exactly, but my educated guess would be around $100,000 a day. The top 10. Yeah. But yeah, between 50 and 100. Which would make it 3 million a month. 1 to 3 million a month. Yeah.
Well, how should we students exactly start learning about analytics and this kind of stuff? There's not many courses like this.
Yeah. I started working in games. I was still finishing up my studies here in IDBM and basically Helsinki School of Economics. The best way to do games and do product management is to work on a game. Like that's the only way you'll learn. All kind of courses and things like that, people will tell you stuff on a very high level. So play a lot and go and work on a game and keep playing a lot all the time. So yeah, that's the only thing. That's how it works. And there are a lot of game companies in Finland, so it shouldn't be that hard. Starting your own company out of nothing, like the first thing, you haven't done games before, that's a huge risk. That's not something I would suggest doing. So learning what works, what doesn't, and then moving from that. But yeah. Cool.
Okay.
Thanks.